This week on the Digital Coffee, could Mascots be the new must-have brand asset? Instagram is jacking up its security, and Twitter is making it easier for us to start direct message conversations. All that and more after this. Good morning, and welcome to the Digital Coffee. This is your weekly dose of digital marketing and social media news for small business. My name is Amanda Webb, and I am grabbing my so empty cup of coffee. I'd love to know what you are drinking as we share this coffee break together. Is it coffee? Is it tea? What else is in your mug? If you're watching on Facebook, a big hello. You know, if you leave me a comment, I will send you a copy of the Digital Coffee newspaper via direct message. If you're watching on LinkedIn, a big, massive hello to you. It is great to see you. Do say hello. Do let me know what's in your cup. Do let me know if you think that Facebook might pull out of Europe, because that's one of the stories we're going to be talking about. And you'll also find a link where you can sign up for that newspaper, and the same on YouTube. You will see that pinned to the top of the chat. So you can get your copy of the newspaper there. It's absolutely free. And I will also send you reminders of the next Digital Coffee show if you go there. That is it. Nothing else. Nothing else. Good morning to Kate, who is drinking tea. It's great to see you here, Kate. Gosh, I've got so many stories for you. But there is the one that I know so many people have been talking about this week, and that's what we're going to start with.
I'm Ian Anderson-Gray, and you're watching Digital Coffee with Amanda Webb.
Is Facebook about to leave Europe? Is it going to pull out of Europe? You have seen the headlines, but is it actually true? Well, Facebook themselves, or Meta, the parent company, released a statement this week saying, no, it's not quite true. That's not it. They're saying what actually happened is that every year when they have their shareholder meeting, whatever they call that thing, when they have their meeting, they are by law required to tell shareholders of anything that could affect the share price over the coming year. And that thing, and this is why when I saw these headlines, it all seemed familiar to me. For the last few years, that thing has been privacy in Europe. And there is one thing which I'll go into more detail in a moment, because it is actually relevant to a lot of software that you're probably using. One thing changed a few years ago, and ever since, Facebook every year has been saying we will, this is making it difficult for us to do business in Europe. And that's it. That's it as far as they say. Now, the thing that is getting in the way, when GDPR first came in, there was, I don't know if you call it a protection, but I'm going to call it a protection called Privacy Shield, so that businesses like Facebook, large organizations like Facebook, and also smaller like software companies could transport the data that they collected to the country that they were working in if they use the thing called Privacy Shield. Which was great, right? Because all those companies, it's not just, like I say, Facebook, it's the email marketing software you're using, it's the customer relationship management software, it could even be the shopping cart system that you're using. All of those were initially protected by this Privacy Shield. It made you and it made them GDPR compliant. But then Privacy Shield was invalidated. See that? I feel like I'm talking about things I don't know about, but I do know it was invalidated by the EU court a couple of years ago, which meant companies like Facebook, and yes, those smaller businesses that you are probably using, suddenly were no longer complying with GDPR. So guess what? Facebook isn't complying with GDPR because of this. It's still in the courts. So we are expecting a judgment, or Facebook say they are expecting a judgment early 2022 about this. And to be honest, it would be a big relief to me, and I'm sure to a lot of small businesses, if that judgment was to reinstate Privacy Shield. Because right now you are probably using software and you're not aware of it that isn't GDPR compliant, but was GDPR compliant because of this Privacy Shield protection. So no, Facebook aren't leaving. You don't need to suddenly go and use LinkedIn instead. But maybe you do need to think about looking at other social networks. The problem if you're using Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp are obviously that they all fall under the Meta umbrella. So if something did happen to that company, you're losing everything. The easiest thing to do is just build an email list, because if you do that, whichever social network you go to in the future, you still have that email list. And to work on your website, make sure that not every activity, not every sale that you make is down to one of these social networks. But you've heard me say that before, right? Nobody's got any comments on that. I'd love to know your thoughts on that, particularly if you're on LinkedIn, because you're my favourite people on LinkedIn. Well, Kate's one of my favourite people. I'm sure she's watching on LinkedIn as well, right, Kate?
You're watching The Digital Coffee with Amanda Webb.
Twitter are officially testing a new thing. And the new thing is that users will be able to direct message other people on Twitter just from a tweet. They won't have to go to their profile, click on the message button to send a message. They'll be able to do it from a tweet. Now, obviously, this will depend on people's messenger settings. I do have my messages open on Twitter. A lot of people will only let people who are following them or they're following send them a message. So it will depend on that. Why would Twitter do this? Well, I think Twitter have for a long time been working on their messaging feature. They bought a company recently that should make threaded direct messaging easier. They put the little chat box, very similar to what you get on Facebook on desktop, so you can actually message people directly from the timeline without having to leave. And I guess if you're having more direct message conversations, if you're building better relationships on Twitter, which we know people are doing on Spaces as well, you're more likely to spend more time on the network. You're more likely to engage on the network, which means that is the goal of every single social network. What I also think is this is very similar to what you can already do on a Facebook business page, on an Instagram business account. People can you can actually reply to a comment with a direct message. And this works exceptionally well with chatbot technology. Like ManyChat is, if you are watching on Facebook and you comment, ManyChat is picking up on that trigger to send you a copy of my newspaper. So could this, aside from Twitter wanting you to build better relationships, could we see an improvement on the sort of chatbots that businesses will be able to use on Twitter itself? There is some sort of chatbot integration and tools that you could use, but this could give something like ManyChat a way in. I can see we've got some people here on. I'm just hitting my microphone when I try and get you onto the screen. We've got James here on YouTube, putting the kettle on to get the coffee sorted. Good morning to May King, who is the co-host of my Twitter space, which we do at 10:30 a.m. on Twitter. You'll see a pinned tweet on my Twitter where we discuss these stories in more detail. May King chips in, sometimes James will chip in. You can come and chip in and have your say about what you think is going to happen. And thanks for Making for reminding me to say that. Good morning to Mark from Pocket Video School, also joining us from YouTube. What are you drinking, Mark? Tea or coffee? Something else?
Hey, it's Andy at Content Cal here, and you're watching The Digital Coffee with Amanda Webb.
Are you using two-factor authentication on all your social media channels? Please, particularly if you're managing accounts for other people, please tell me that you are. What is 2FA? This is when you will sign up to something with email. When you go to log in, you put in your email address and then it will perhaps send a text message and you have to put in the code from that text message to access the site. Or sometimes it will be an email. Or sometimes you might use an authenticator app, which we will talk about shortly. And this just adds a level of security. You know, I'm seeing so many people getting hacked at the moment on Facebook, on Instagram, that I think just adding this, yes, it's hassle, but it is really important. You know where it's really hassly though? It's really hassly when you are working with clients, because what happens is, you log into the client account. Their two-factor authentication sends them a text message. You have to wait for them to get onto you to forward you the code so that you can put it in. And these are all time sensitive as well. So that puts another barrier in the way. It is a real pain. But Instagram this week are working on making that easier. It was Safer Internet Day or something last week, and they announced this alongside a whole other slew of measures. And what this is they're going to make it easier to set up your two-factor authentication. They're also, if you are using an app like Google Authenticator, which is just an app that works like the text message, when you go to log in, it sends you the code that you need to put in. If you use that, 2 people will be able to get the code, or multiple people will be able to get the code to log into Instagram at once. So your client, but also you, which will make life so much easier. No more having to ring the client to see if they're there, if they can send you the message. No longer waiting for that message to come to you. It will all be streamlined, and that can only be a good thing, right?
Hi, I'm Kyra Fingleton from Glamping Under the Stars, and you're watching The Digital Coffee with Amanda Webb.
Is a brand mascot the newest thing that you should be getting? The new brand asset, the new logo, the new sonic identity? Is it the new way, tone of voice? What am I talking about? A brand mascot? What am I even saying? Well, there was an interesting report done by Marketing Brew this week, who noticed that there have been, on TikTok specifically, an uptake in brand mascots, and actually they're being really successful. This could be a business's way in to being successful on TikTok. The first example they gave was for Duolingo, who have this owl, and yet this is a full-on mascot. This is a person dressed in a foam suit as an owl. Duolingo were getting 10 to 20,000 views on their TikTok videos. So they weren't starting out, they already had something going on. Since they've started using the mascot in their videos, they're getting millions and sometimes tens of millions of views. So something that is a little bit frivolous, a little bit quirky, is working incredibly well for this business, which is, at the end of the day, a course for learning a different language. They are working really well on TikTok. But it's not just these big foam mascots that are working. They also found that the Empire State Building has a mascot, but it's not a foam person. It's something that was way more accessible for you and me to do. They've taken a picture of the Empire State Building and they've transposed the eyes and a mouth onto it, which will talk. Again, they're seeing a massive uptick on the number of views that they're getting because of this. But I know, right? You're saying these are gigantic businesses. Everyone has heard of the Empire State Building. A lot of people have heard of Duolingo. Will this work for a small business? Well, firstly, don't go off your tone of voice. If you are not a business that should be fun and should be a little bit quirky, this isn't going to work for you. If it's not natural and fits into your style, it will just make people think they're a little bit weird. But as a small business, we all have mascots, right? Our faces are our own mascots, and actually seeing the human being behind your brand could be maybe not as effective as dressing up in a big suit, but could be a really good way to utilize this trend. I can see we've got lots of comments coming in on this one, so I do feel I need to switch over. Firstly, good morning. I may make lots of noise on my microphone. I seem to have the mouse in the wrong place this week. Good morning to Deirdre, who is over on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to see you here. Like the sounds of the 2FA? Yes, it's going to make life so much easier, isn't it? Was great to talk about your own rented assets for your brand on the marketing meetup this week. You'll have to tell me more about that. Thoughts being your business can own a mascot, but only rents the thought leader employee. That's really interesting, because another trend that we see on TikTok is, of course, that they work with an influencer or a creator. They work with a creator is the correct term these days, or they'll have someone within their organization that will do the TikToks. And yes, of course, when that employee leaves, or when you can no longer afford to pay that creator, that is your mascot lot gone. If you've got a big foam suit, anyone can wear it. Anyone can wear it. So yeah, you're onto something there, James. You'll have to tell me more on the after show on Spaces about the marketing meetup. I'd love to know.
Hi, I'm Charlie Lawrence and you're watching The Digital Coffee with Amanda Webb.
There's just so much content to consume online, isn't there? And you know what's the worst? Video and audio content. Video and audio content requires your 100% attention if you are going to consume it. But if you want to consume all of it, you could be staring at YouTube or my show all day long, right? Twitter is aware of this, and Twitter is working on something, is introducing something that they have totally stolen from podcast players. And this is the ability to speed up or slow down audio on videos and audio tweets, which means, of course, if you speed it up, you can consume it much faster and move on to the next thing. Now, two things. Firstly, I have never sped up a podcast. I don't want to hear people sounding like chipmunks. I like to sit and enjoy and consume or usually when I'm out for a walk, and consume my podcast. So not going to use the speed up. Maybe though, this would work, for a longer message. Maybe somebody sent me a message and it's quite long and I need to speed through it. That could work. My big question, and I'd love to hear from you on this one, is why would you slow it down? You can go right down to 0.25 speed. You can go up to double speed and down to 0.25. Why would you slow it down? There's probably a very good reason that I'm missing, but I would love to know. So if you've any thoughts on that, do tell me.
Hello, this is Rob Charles, the voice of Mike on Forever FM on Peter Kay's Car Share. BAFTA award winning, I've got to say, but I've not seen the BAFTA yet. Anyway, you're watching The Digital Coffee with Amanda Webb. Enjoy. I'm on tea. Shh.
Could switching off the negative contents you get on social media make them easier to deal with? If you've ever been, and thankfully this has only ever happened to me once in my 13 years of being on Twitter, if you've ever been the victim of a pile-on, so that's when somebody starts it and then a whole other load of people, and to be honest, when it happened to me, it was only tiny. I'd hate to experience it the way that a lot of celebrities experience it. When you become a victim of that, it is completely consuming. You have to keep going back and checking, because as much as you shouldn't go back and check, you do go back and check to see who's saying what now. It totally destroys your self-confidence. So anything you were doing in that day is totally consumed by it. But in general, your marketing will be consumed by it as well. You'll start listening to the rubbish and thinking that maybe they were right. This week, as part of Internet Safety Day, or whatever it was called, Twitter released a new feature called Safety Mode. Just checking that I don't have a thing for that. I don't. Safety Mode. And you will be able, they actually are prompting people as well to flick it on. You will be able to, if you are not having a good day on Twitter, you'll be able to flick it on and it will block spammy comments. You will not see them as long as you have this mode switched on, which could make a dent. It's not going to cure you completely of all those things I just talked about, but it could help you get over it faster. It could make Twitter a better space to be in for you if you're not having to deal with that. So I'm imagining it is going to be people with public figures who get a lot of this stuff going on. But it begs a question. It says it blocks spammy comments. Firstly, what is a spammy comment? We were thinking about trolls at the beginning here, and now they're saying spammy comments. And secondly, if they can block spammy comments, Why aren't they just blocking spammy comments? Why do we need to switch it on and say we don't need them? Something is missing in translation here, but I do feel when we see this in action, it could be valuable. It could make Twitter a nicer space for a lot of people that I know some people have had bad experiences there. No, it's only happened to me once and hopefully it will never happen again. And I do love it as a network. Deirdre has a comment coming up here. Oh, 2 comments. Firstly, James, who speeds up some podcast for people that talk slow with purpose. I think double speed, they don't quite sound like chipmunks, do they? That's interesting to know, though. Deirdre says, you're following a tutorial of somebody creating something. I have slowed video. Now, that's smart. You've slowed videos down. Occasionally odd things happen in the background of videos. I've slowed videos down to look closer. Now, that makes sense. Thanks. That makes total sense now. Why didn't I think of that? I don't know. Well, thank you for sharing that. That is brilliant. Thanks so much. I'm trying to find the button to press. Can you tell?
I'm Esther.
And I'm Melanie.
From the Monday Morning Marketing Podcast.
And you're watching The Digital Coffee
with Amanda Webb.
The problem with Clubhouse is it had been a one-trick pony. It did one thing. It was a space where you had audio conversations with people. And you know what? It's great at that. It's really good at that. It took off in a big way. But the problem, both for them and for us, was that if you wanted to build your relationship with the people you were talking with further, you'd have to go somewhere else to build that. And for a lot of people, it was Instagram. You know, for me, it would have been Twitter. And of course, for Clubhouse, that means they're sending people off app, which is the last thing social networks usually want to do. So this week, they're introducing a new feature. It's been found by Alessandro Paluzzi, who is a reverse engineer. So this hasn't been launched yet, but it's something they're working on, which is room chat. Now, if you're on Clubhouse already, you may, because I haven't accessed it for a while and I wasn't going to reinstall the app, but I thought this sort of thing was there already, but apparently not. This will be like a text chat that you can set up for the room specifically when you set up the room, where people can have a conversation alongside the room. I was about to say Twitter Space there, which is where, of course, I do my audio chats. So this will, firstly, it will be great for building those relationships further. You'll be able to actually get to know the people that you're meeting in the room. And secondly, if you were able to be selective about who you let into this chat, it could also be a really good place for a room host to get together to moderate chats, or to maybe, oh, let's give this speaker 5 more minutes, or it could be a really good space for your speakers to go to continue the conversation, or for you to communicate with them beyond that. So I think this is a really great update from Clubhouse, and it could see those deeper relationships happening. Time for one more comment here from James. See, these social networks can block hateful spam. It's maybe, just maybe, not been in their interest to date. Yeah. This is the question that arises from this whole Twitter thing. Now, we know that Twitter have been talking about making it a safer space for a long time. So it does make you wonder, what's the issue? Why haven't they been blocking these comments in the first place? Hello, Deirdre. The repeated... Love you, long time, click here, spam comment. Oh, yes. Yes, those comments. Those comments that you do get on all social networks. Love you, love you, love you. Oh, you're so hot. Oh, hello, baby. Are you single? Hello, lovely lady. Will I go on? No, I should finish the show. But don't forget to join myself and Making Sang, the best co-host I have to say I've ever had, on Twitter Spaces at 10:30 a.m, where we will discuss this in more detail. If you don't know how to join in, if you want to speak, you will need to join on mobile. If you're joining on desktop, you can just listen in. You will find a tweet pinned to the top of my timeline. I'm at Spiderworking. At 10:30, you can just click in and join the room. So hopefully I'll see some of you there. If not, I will be back here, same bat time, same bat place next week. Until then, bye-bye.